Well, welcome back everybody. Today we're going to be discussing Islam. You're going to need a copy of your Islamic review sheet that you got off your website. If you don't have a copy of that right in front of you, you're going to need to get that right now. As you can see, we have a new item on the slides. The Islamic crescent moon that will be on all of the slides that will correspond with the fill in the blank that's on your sheet. You're wanting to make sure that you pay special attention to those slides. For those fill in the blanks will be the questions that are on the exam as usual. Okay, now we're going to start off with the definition of the word Islam, and as you can see, the Islamic crescent moon is on the slide, and therefore this should correspond with your first fill in the blank. Islam means submission or surrender. Okay, now according to the Quran, the world is divided up into two different houses, and Dar al-Islam is the house of Islam, and if you are a Muslim, you belong to the Ummah, which is the Muslim community. Now, Dar al-Harb is the abode of war. That is what everybody else belongs to, those who are non-Muslims. Okay, now, the name Allah is God in Arabic, and there has been a lot of discussion in the community about from some particular pastors that say that Allah is a different God than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Jesus. Allah is just the Arabic word for God, and it is used by Arabic Christians. It predates Muhammad, and therefore it is just the Arabic word for God. Okay? Now, Arabs mean nomad. It's used today to describe people who speak Arabic and share a common cultural heritage. Most Muslims in the world are not Arabs, but of course Islam started from Muhammad, and Muhammad is an Arab, and it began as an Arab religion. Not all Arabs are Muslims. Christians are Christians are Arabs as well as there are people from every faith in the world that are Arabs as well. And so not all Arabs are Muslims, and sometimes that does get confused. Now, they're just like in Christianity, and as you can see, the crescent moon is on this slide as well. The Islamic community is broken up into several different divisions, just as like Christianity is and most religions are. The main Islamic group is the Sunnis, which are the followers of the tradition of the Prophet, and they are about 1 billion strong. And then the next largest sect, of course, is the Shiites, and they're the party of Ali, and they are found basically in southern Iraq and Iran, and bits and pieces of Asia and the Middle East. Kharijites are a division of mosque, believe in the division of mosque and states, and they're centered in southern Iraq. Kharijites are Shiites as well. We'll be discussing those a little bit later on. That's why southern Iraq is very close to Iran, but they haven't broken away and become part of Iran, because the Shiites in southern Iraq are Kharijites, and so then they're kind of Shiites with a twist. Hawabis, which we'll be discussing as well later on, are found basically in Saudi Arabia. They are the Shiites, and the Hawabis are the ones that you hear most about in the news, and where the Sunnis are a little bit more quiet. We'll be discussing the breakdown as each one of them develop within the religion itself. Okay, and then here's a list of some of the other Muslims. We have Sufis. Sufis are mystic Muslims. Some of the other Muslims that we'll be discussing are the Alawites. They're 1.6 million. They're located in Syria. Syria, they constitute about 10% of the population. Assad, the president of Syria, is an Alawite. The Alawites have controlled Syria for quite some time. About 60% of the population of Syria is Sunni. And so then therefore you have a minority that is controlling the majority in Syria. And we'll be discussing that as well later on in the slideshow, as well as you can see, we have Druze. Black Muslims are basically found here in America. They're 1.7 million, and so we will be discussing many of these groups throughout the slideshow. Okay, here is an ethnic breakdown of Muslims, and as you can see, Arabs are only about 25% of the Islamic world. 33%, or the largest, is in South Central Asia, in Indonesia and Malaysia, and in that particular area, and they are the largest group. And are, as you can see, like for instance, within the Arab Middle East, women are more inclined to wear the hijab, and they're a little bit more strict in their practice of Islam and Sharia law, whereas in South Central Asia you even have women that are president of countries that are Muslims, and women do not necessarily wear the hijab. Okay, and then here is a breakdown of where Islam is located throughout the world, and the different kind of sects in which are dominant in those particular areas. And this is broke down between the Sunnis and the Shiites, and then within Sunniism and Shiaism there are those are broken down as well. Okay, and we will be discussing this later on in the slideshow. Okay, now some definitions and words that you hear on the news on a regular basis and you need to understand. One of them is mosque, and as you can see, the crescent moon is on this slide as well, so make sure that you get the answer here. It is a place of prostration, and this is where Muslims go to services on Friday. So a mosque is just like a church for Christians and a synagogue for Jews. Jumu'ah is Friday gatherings, and this is where all Islamic men are required to go on Friday at noon. It is not required for women to go, but in recent times in the 21st century, 20th and 21st century, more and more women do attend Friday services. The Imam is Arabic for in front, and he is a leader of prayer. He is the pastor, or pastor or priest like within Christianity, or rabbi within Judaism. Muslims have an imam, and he is the person who will lead the prayers and the services. In Shiite Islam, he is a major spiritual guide. So there is a little bit of a difference between Shiaism and Sunniism on what is an imam. Okay. Then within Shiaism, you have Ayatollahs, which we've heard of. Ayatollah Khomeini was very big when I was a kid. This is a sign of God. He has a high rank given to a major Shiite cleric who is an expert in Islamic studies, jurisprudence, ethics, philosophy, and usually teaches in seminaries. And they are less Ayatollahs, of course, than there are. These are big leaders within the Shiite religion. Then you have muftis, which are kind of like heads over areas, like a bishop. The one mufti that's mentioned the most in the news is the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. And there aren't a lot of muftis as well, but within the one in which you'll probably hear the most about would be the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Okay, then we have sheikhs, and he is a religious leader, and to the Sufis, which is the mystical Islam, is a spiritual leader. Okay, and sheikh is, he has been a leader within the Arab world for generations. It predates Muhammad. A fatwa, I'm sure you've heard about in the news. It is a religious announcement only from religious leaders. It is a proclamation The Roman Catholic Church has their own religious announcements, and we'll be discussing those later on in a different PowerPoint. But you've probably heard on the news of, especially through Islam or through Iran and the Shiite leaders there making fatwas. Usually, unfortunately, those are sentences of death to people who have profaned Muhammad or Islam as a religion. Okay? Then you have the Waqf, which is kind of like an Islamic council or a police. The main place that you'll hear in the news about a Waqf is the Waqf is in control of a Haram Sharif to the Muslims, and the dome or the Temple Mount to the Jews, and the Temple Mount to the Christians. In Jerusalem, they are the religious leaders of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. They lead there, and they are called the Waqf. Okay, then the Ummah is the learned scholars or religious specialists, and we have a number of pictures here of people which you might recognize. The leader on the far left is one from Iraq, and then of course next to him is a leader from Ayatollah Khomeini from Iran, who was really big in the 70s. Madrasas are schools designed for religious studies. They are usually connected to mosques. You have madrasas all over the world. You build a mosque, you build a madrasa next to it, and usually this is exclusively for young boys to go and learn a school, and in particular the Quran and the Hadith, and we'll be discussing what that is here in just a few minutes. And those are spreading throughout the world as well, and I'm sure that you've heard of those within the news. A midrab is the niche in the wall of a mosque that point toward the Qibla, or the direction of Mecca. When Muslims pray 5 times a day, they pray towards Mecca. And so then they always need to know the direction of Mecca, and this particular niche in the wall of mosque point towards the direction of Mecca, in which Muslims pray. And here is an example of a Qibla in Cairo with one of my teachers. This was a picture of me in school in Cairo. And then to the left you see the Mecca and the direction in which they pray. Okay, and then the midbar is where the imam walks up the stairs and turns around, and he leads the prayers and preaches from on Friday noons. And we have some examples of those as well. These are in mosques, and they are where imams lead the congregation. The Quran is God's revelation to Muhammad. It is the Islamic scriptures, and we will be going into depth about the Quran a little bit later on in this PowerPoint. Okay, and now Christians call them scriptures, or Muslims call them surah, which is in Arabic means picture or insight. And so then when they discuss, go to surah number X, Y, and Z, this is where it's indicating a scripture in the Quran, and they're called surahs. Okay, we're going to be running out of time here for this particular segment. We will continue on in the next segment and pick it up from here. And again, if you have any questions, please send those to me as soon as possible, and I will get back to you with the answer. And we appreciate your comments as well as your questions to enrich the PowerPoint and your knowledge of Islam and the other items that we cover in these PowerPoints. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.